Lawrence Lee is live in London for us. Lawrence, has Cameron's speech gone any way towards placating the anger that's been rising in the UK?
Well, I mean, he's certainly been flailing himself with birch twigs, hasn't he? As indeed has the current Labour leader, Ed Miliband. They're all saying that they were all guilty of the same sort of cosy practices, spinning to the media here in the Westminster lobby, doing what the media wanted for fear that the media might come out against them. And that now they're saying clearly that something has to change. Excuse me for a second. There are lots of different inquiries now going on. Clearly there's a criminal one. Andy Coulson, the former editor of the News of the World, who then became Cameron's press man, well, he's now under arrest under allegations of phone hacking. But then there are these separate inquiries now launched by the government, first to investigate the full extent of phone hacking and the practices of the media, but then that one that David Cameron alluded to in the soundbite about what the nature of British democracy is and the relationship between the political class and the press. Let's bring in someone who's going to have a point of view on this, I'm sure. Jeremy Corby, MP, I think it's fair to say, not Rupert Murdoch's greatest fan, nor indeed that much of a fan of the way in which the political system works in this country and the relationship between politicians and the media. Let me ask you then, first of all, what do you make of all this phone hacking? What does it say about the nature of the press in this country?
Well, it shows that they were desperate for stories, and the more salacious the stories could be, the nastier they got and the more devious they got. So we ended up with a situation of journalists on behalf of the News of the World hacking into private phone numbers of celebrities, and then it turned out to be of victims, and in the case of Millie Dowler, the victims of murder.
And they thought they could act simply above the law in this sense?
They thought they could act above the law because on the authority of people very high up in the newspaper, they were allowed to pay the police privately to provide phone numbers and information, which is completely illegal ever since the 1930s in this country, to pay a police officer for anything.
For people in the outside world who don't really understand how the Westminster lobby works and the relationship between journalists and politicians, just paint us a picture of the briefings and the way in which politicians and the media here deal with each other.
There's two strands to it. There's what's called the Westminster lobby, which is the accredited lobby correspondents who spend their whole life within Westminster. The equivalent in the United States would be within the Beltway. They have a very close, friendly relationship with politicians. They all know each other's secrets. They all know each other's private goings on and dealings. So it's quite a restricted view of things, and they're quite supportive and friendly to each other.
And the media will do stories that they want and that the politicians want, and politicians will only give their friends in the media the stories they want published.
That's right. So if they want some story published, they'll go and talk to a friend in the lobby who will then put it in the media somehow or other, or will promote them. So if it's somebody after a position in one of the parties, they will be promoted by that person.
But this clearly has nothing to do with any real news agenda of any kind at all, does it?
No news agenda at all. It's the Westminster Village helping out the Westminster Village. But beyond that, you then get the next phase of journalism is outside that. There's these very aggressive investigative journalisms from particularly the Daily Mail and the News of the World, who are often after salacious gossip about sexual relationships and marriage breakups and all that sort of thing. Very seldom anything done in the public interest. And there's a much smaller group of very serious journalists, largely around the Guardian, Independent, and to some extent the Telegraph, who do investigative journalism on matters of real public interest.
OK, so I've got two final questions. The first one is, given all this, what do you think about a situation where Britain lectures other countries about the importance of a free press?
Britain is very good at lecturing the whole world about everything. It's time we started looking to ourselves instead. Look to the number of people that are in prison in this country, look to the issues of rich and poor in this country, but above all, look to this very close, cosy relationship between some of the media and some of the political parties, and the way in which ministers can decide on the future ownership and structure of the media industry in this country.
Well, and indeed, newspapers can call the outcome of an election by saying who they want to vote for. And just a final question then. David Cameron and Ed Miliband have both said today this has all got to change. Politicians have to be open with the media's got to be free from political influence. Do you really think there's any chance of that happening?
It's completely naive. You have to have a wide variety of ownership, a wide variety of independence, and you have to have journalists who are serious about following things through. But journalists' jobs have been cut. There's been fewer and fewer investigative journalisms, more and more easy spam reporting going on. We need a much tougher, much more independent sector. We don't need concentration of ownership.
OK, Jeremy Corbyn, thank you very much indeed for your time. Well, that's one view. Clearly, they do sound, at least based on what they said this morning, to be quite serious about this. We'll have to see how these inquiries go over the coming months. Back to you.
Lawrence Lee, thanks very much indeed. Lawrence in London.